Paul, what is Cypress's involvement with the National Cancer Institute, or commonly known as the NCI?
To really answer that, I need to back up a little bit in history, back to the early 1980s when we developed, then at Fleischmann's yeast, we developed the high selenium yeast, the organically bound form of selenium, that was used in a clinical cancer prevention trial called the Nutritional Prevention of Cancer Trial, conducted by Dr. Larry Clark and Jerry Combs, Dr. Gerald Combs, then at Cornell University. Our involvement then was to supply the intervention agent that was used in that trial, 200 microgram supplementation, and the placebo for that product. Really, the trial ran for 14 years until 1994 and was unblinded in 94 and published in the Journal of American Medical Association in 1996 because it showed a 50 to 63% reduction in colon, lung, and prostate cancer. So our involvement with the National Cancer Institute really stems from our involvement in that trial and the publication in the Journal of American Medical Association. Following that publication on Christmas Eve of 1996, it was deemed to be a landmark trial. It was the first time that a nutritional agent like selenium, and organically bound selenium, had been shown to prevent cancer to that level. It was landmark. It was a complete paradigm shift in the way the oncology world was looking at the prevention of cancer. We're going for a public health recommendation. Much like oat and oat fiber reduces cholesterol, and we see that on our Cheerios and this type of thing. We're going for a public health recommendation with FDA that selenium and SelenoXL, the organically bound form, will prevent cancer. That's a long process, a very rigorous process, and it should be. If we're going to recommend to our public through their nutrition an ingredient, it should be a very rigorous process. In order to do that, we have to do what's called confirming trials. We can't make that decision on even a gold standard trial like the MPC trial. We can't make that kind of recommendation on one single trial. So the oncology groups, the oncology world, research community, began putting together grant applications related to confirming the original MPC trial results. And before the National Cancer Institute would proceed with ongoing research, they wanted the product to be standardized because many times in the pharmaceutical area, we're dealing with a single chemical compound, which is well defined. But in this area, we're dealing with a food form of organically bound selenium. And so there's a lot of opportunities for variability there unless the product was standardized. And in fact, in the industry, of the nutritional industry, we have many adulterated type products where the true nature of the product is that the yeast has been grown in a selenium-rich environment. It has organically bound all of the selenium into its protein structure, and there's no free or inorganic selenium available. But unfortunately, in many cases, we have products that are out there that are dealing with brewer's yeast, which comes from beer manufacturing, and they're just dumping inorganic selenium in and blending it up and calling it a high selenium yeast. So the National Cancer Institute was, prior to going on with ongoing research, was very concerned with the lack of standardization. And so we began a 2-year effort in 1997 of showing them the standard for the product, that fundamentally the number one standard is it has to be 100% organically bound selenium. And then, much like you would with any other product you manufacture, whether it would be a food product or any product, you want to set a standard that shows that there's minimal variance into it. You know what you're doing. And so we showed them that from batch to batch, that we could produce a product that was fully replicated. It was the same every time. And through this process, we gave them the confidence that there truly was a standard for this nutritional agent, that the product could be replicated and could be done consistently from batch to batch. And based on building that confidence with the National Cancer Institute and standardizing the product, we were able to sign a clinical trial agreement. Normally is reserved for major pharmaceutical companies, but we were one of the first companies that signed a clinical trial agreement for a nutritional agent such as selenium or high selenium yeast.
Now, what is a clinical trial agreement? Is that, and I assume that's with the National Cancer Institute?
Yeah, it's with the Cancer Prevention. It was with the Cancer Prevention Division of NCI, And it is an agreement. It is an agreement between a supplier of an intervention agent, such as SelenoXL or a high selenium yeast. It's an agreement between the supplier of that ingredient and the provider of the research, which is the National Cancer Institute. And there's all aspects of any normal agreement as to how that's going to be supplied. But primarily it focused on the standard that we would maintain for the product, so that they, investing now over $250 million in clinical research on the product, they want to have confidence and an agreement that we will maintain the integrity of that product throughout the clinical research. And then when that research is published and the consuming public is looking to source that product, that they're still going to get the same product, that we haven't compromised that standard in any way, shape, or form. So we sign an agreement.
What year was that, Paul?
It was in 1998. And it's a legally binding agreement, and there were performance requirements that we have to have. And in regards to SelenoXL, we have to maintain that performance because we are in gold standard clinical cancer prevention research with our National Cancer Institute.
Mm-hmm. Now, when that clinical trial agreement was signed, it sounds like standardization was really the key before that was obtained.
Right, and standardization was the key. The National Cancer Institute, before they invest that level of funds and make recommendations to a consuming public, they want to know that they can put their confidence behind an ingredient. And they're interested in many nutritional agents that are available. The National Cancer Institute are looking not only at selenium but also vitamin E and soy isoflavones. They're looking at green tea and black tea extract. The polyphenols, which come from grapes and grape seed extracts. They're looking at the lycopene that comes from the red in tomatoes. They're looking at herbs such as saw palmetto. And they're looking at these 7 or 8 other nutritional agents as viable agents for cancer prevention. And so in each of those areas, they're working diligently with companies that supply that so that they can standardize those products. And once standardized, they can put them into mainstream gold standard clinical research.